And when astral projection is happening, the question I would personally wonder is, the soul that's incarnate who is experiencing the astral projection, are they projecting into the spiritual realm, or are they projecting into the space that I believe exists closer to Earth, and the space that is between being incarnate and being fully in the spiritual realm and what we experience in life between lives regression?
The only thing we ask you to consider is that you are more than your physical body. Just consider that. And through that, the hemisync technology helps you really move into knowing that, not just believing it, but because it's able to put you into a relaxed state. First of all, that's the key of anything, is to move into a totally relaxed state. And once you're there, you begin to open up and expand into the energy that you are, which is more than your physical body.
And we've known for years and years that when you can be in that very deeply relaxed place, then we let go of our defenses, we let go of blocks and obstacles that perhaps get in the way of exploring. And so from that place of deep relaxation, then we can open up to all kinds of possibilities.
Ancient cultures have been doing this through rhythmic drumming, through dance, and through chanting and rituals for thousands of years in many, many, many cultures. The technology of stereo and Dolby Digital surround sound is something new to the 20th and 21st century. We have found a way to use that modern day technology to do what cultures have been doing for thousands of years. We use an audio guidance system to alter brainwave states, accompanied by relaxation procedures and meditative procedures that allow people to develop an awareness of information and concepts not ordinary to our waking state. This is the bridge for opening a gateway for the out-of-body experience.
The out-of-body experience, the classical kind of out-of-body that others might call astral projection, may be important for some people and may occur for some people, but it's just one piece of a whole range of possible experiences that would be useful in helping one to come to know better their total self.
Well, death is the big unfocus. Letting go. Suddenly, all of those things which were so important to you, almost your whole life, will, in a flash, be totally unimportant to you. It may take a couple of days, I don't know how long, before you finally recognize that you're not that body anymore, or you're not even concerned with the whole life and death drama of that lifetime.
And in the moment of your death, that force dissolve and let go everything. No longer recognize any piece of you anymore. But the soul comes from life, which means from spirit or from God.
Essentially, our soul is waves of light and color. Our soul is energy. And so when our soul is released out of our physical body, essentially what happens is the energy vibrations heighten so that our soul is able to leave our body. And our body is very dense and low and of a vibrational nature. And when our soul leaves at the point of death, those energy vibrations, we might say, speed up, and that's how the soul is released out of the body.
When a person goes through their own death in a past life regression, it's usually very easy for them to leave their body and to realize that they've died. I always take a moment for them to reflect on the life they've just left. It's a very interesting experience for people to realize that they're not really that body. They almost always are above the body looking down. They can see the people in the room, that if their wife or husband is crying over the body, and they almost always describe a sense of relief. And that it's easier for them to have passed over than for the people left behind. And this is something I think is interesting for us to remember when someone has died that's close to us, that we're usually going through much more trauma than they are. And almost always there's immediately a sense of relief and peace, and especially if they've been ill or in any pain.
I have learned to experience death in a peaceful way, where if I was asked that question 6, 7, 8 years ago, I would have looked at it in an entirely different light, with a lot of fear of the unknown and what to expect.
We are living in a physical body that is alive because of us. We give life to this physical body. Mind exists because we give life to that mind. Without us, the physical body will disappear, will become dust, and the mind will be dissolved. What we really are is life, and life is eternal. It never ends. It never begins. But it's shifting, it's growing, it's transforming, and there is nothing but transformation. It's ourselves getting out of that physical body, ourselves getting out of that mind, of that world of illusion.
Think of it as when you're looking through a lens or a telescope or a pair of binoculars. If you look through it and the image is sharp, that's called focused. As you turn the dials, they start to get blurry. That's called defocusing or unfocusing. Now, an unfocused image is that the light from the object is going through many different pathways to reach your eye, so that your eye is getting the light from different directions all at the same time, and it appears blurry. So if you think of it, it's a good analogy to parallel realities. Parallel realities, you're seeing all the realities coming through at once, rather than just a single reality, a single focused reality. And these two processes, focusing and defocusing, are things that we do naturally as we begin to learn new things, as we begin to let go of old ways of thinking so we can learn new things again. This is sort of the process of life.
A newly deceased spirit is, yes, very aware of what is going on. It may take time for that newly deceased spirit to recognize that they have in fact died. There are times when the newly deceased spirit remains close to the body that they've just been released from, and that spirit may hover close for a fair length of time. Could be hours, could be days, both recognizing what has happened for the spirit and taking care of what I might call unfinished business. It reminds me of a story of a client, a soldier, a young soldier, I think 18 or 20 years old, when he died in war. And he was very concerned about his mother. So he spent a great deal of time attempting to communicate with and comfort his mother before he was ready to move on. And the question we always ask in a Life Between Lives regression is, so how do you do this communicating? How do you energetically connect with someone that remains incarnate? And the descriptions are fascinating at times. It's the soul will say, I send energy into the heart of my mother. And the interesting part is sometimes what's said is that the loved one that still remains in body recognizes the communication, and sometimes there's lack of recognition. And I would hope that through information such as what I'm sharing, that more and more people would come to accept that their loved ones absolutely very often attempt to communicate and let them know that they're fine.
I had passed away. It was a very peaceful death. I had my family around me. Again, that life was kind of a quiet life, a lonely life. There was not a lot of family. I didn't have children, and as I looked down at it, I felt very calm and peaceful and spiritual. And then I experienced a light. It was a bright light, and then kind of a purplish light, and I was just kind of floating along. And as I floated along, I was greeted by my spirit guide, and his name was Peter, and he was wearing a white flowing robe, had a gold cord wrapped around it, with long hair, appeared to be an older person, very calming and very open. And I was then guided along until I saw a building, a structure. What I saw was columns, and it was a big hall. And in the hall there was mosaics on the wall, one wall, and tapestry on the other. Just a huge hall with real tall ceilings.
It is still the great mystery. What is it that's ongoing? What is it that survives? Well, certainly our recent work shows that the information survives. The information in holographic form that nature preserves in this quantum hologram is a record of our life. And in ancient lore, they recognize this as well, but they call it the Akashic record. The Akashic record is the record of life, and was recognized very well by the ancients. We are now starting to see that, and we call it the zero-point energy field with its quantum hologram is the equivalent of, or is like the Akashic record, or they're kind of one and the same. I do not deny that consciousness may be the fundamental stuff, but I don't think you're ever going to be able to prove that directly. In other words, if you can't explain the universe by our normal material, natural means, the way we are trying to do so, then in due course you will have to fall back on the supernatural. At this moment, I'm not prepared to do that.
You do not have to fear death. Because, and again, if you experience it, find out for yourself that you survive physical death. And that, not just believe it, actually experience it. And when you experience it, then you know that you survive physical death. My father had no fear of death. My father, because of so many experiences he had, he knew that he survived death. He didn't just believe it, he knew it, because he had experienced it. The key is for you to find out for yourself.
And we find that people may be very familiar with the territory. Once they're out of the body and have kind of said their farewells, they know exactly where they're going and go there. And they're not met by anyone at all, but they're not lonely. There are people who are met by a whole soul group, and it's almost like a party. Like they've got a big welcome home party, and it's very festive.